Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Hello, I'm Danielle Teal with Amarachi Rockway. She's our intern, and she's going to be co-hosting with me today the Our Town podcast, a KSMQ television show. And this show is all about what's happening in Rochester, organizations, events, you name it, we want to share about it. Today we have Rosei Skipper with the Rochester Posse. She is a total advocate for the music scene and art scene in the community. I love that passion with her about that. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the music scene and what drives that passion. So Rosei, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
We're very glad to have you here. And so can you share a little bit about yourself and what drives that passion? Why are you so passionate about the music and art scene in Rochester?
So I grew up, my parents are super hippies. My dad is a musician and tours all over. And both of my parents are artists. And honestly, I took it for granted, but I spent most of my childhood just kind of dragged along to shows, to be honest. My mom was a single mom and oftentimes would kind of like put me and the other kids to sleep under the bleachers at shows. And it wasn't until I got away from being involved in the art scene that I started to realize how much I missed it. So when I can't even remember, I think I finished fellowship and I realized that I was going to have a lot more free time and that I wasn't quite sure what I liked doing anymore. And that was when I kind of started exploring all these things. And I did this exercise called 10 happiest moments. And just in brief, you write down a list of some of your 10 happiest moments that you can think of. And then I guess there just wasn't a lot of live music in Rochester. There haven't been a lot of venues here traditionally. And so Leah and Tyler and I, Leah, owner of Canvas and Chardonnay, we decided to just start throwing our own concerts, and everything kind of went from there.
Wow, that's definitely an incredible story. And could you share more about the concerts and this whole organization with MyTownMyMusic?
Yeah, so what I think has been really fun is that there are just several groups that have kind of spontaneously come about at the same time that ended up creating a more vibrant scene. So Becky and Dustin and Johnny created MyTownMyMusic, and their focus is more on like bigger ticketed shows, bigger names, like super, I would call them like really nice shows. And all the way down to the spectrum of, Lee and I shows were definitely like DIY. We always included at least one artist, but we also really wanted to bring people here who were not going to be brought to like a sports bar. And we wanted concerts that you could go and hear the music. And that's not always an opportunity. A lot of up and coming musicians, they tour and they play at a lot of bars, which can be really fun. But traditionally, like the customers aren't there to hear the music. And sometimes you can't even hear the artist because people just talk, So we wanted it to be a space where we could bring down a bit different genre of musician. And then at the same time, Carpet Booth, which is this amazing recording studio in town, they've been getting bigger and bigger and more active and bringing a lot of musicians. And there's Tree Dome, which is Maggie and Nate, who previously lived in Winona and are actually moving to Rochester. So they'd be really fun to interview because they're going to open a skate shop, vintage recording studio art space downtown. And it feels like just a lot of different people suddenly we're all really motivated to do this cool thing. And what I realized is like, as long as you have like 20 friends who will show up to something, you can pretty much have an event. Maybe not like obviously not an arena concert, but you can definitely have an event. And one of the things that was really important to us for the art head shows was to bring artists that were just underrepresented. So I would say from a booking experience, like traditionally there's just so many like white male singers. And it's not that they're bad, there's nothing against them, but not a lot of women tour on their own, probably a lot because of safety issues. And so to be able to reach out to women in the cities, reach out to people of color, reach out to hip hop artists and actually say like, we want you here, we'll give you the ticket sales, because that's important too. You know, a lot of people like, I don't know, they just take advantage of musicians or sometimes ask them to pay to play, which I'm like, you're the one giving us the art. You know, we have other jobs, we don't need the money. So, and what ended up happening is we ended up being able to bring people here that I don't think we could have if we were a traditional venue, because people like to be reached out to on a personal basis. And then I really like going to shows in the cities. So I would just kind of, I don't know, I just like don't have any shame anymore. Like I would just go up to musicians, and especially I love discovering new musicians as openers and just be like, hi, my name is Rosie. I don't really know anything about throwing concerts, but I'm throwing them and we just bought a PA. The sound system.
Love it.
I did not know what that was. And just asking them like, would you ever be interested in coming down? And what's been really fun to see is that a lot of those first musicians that we brought down now regularly make Rochester one of their stops. So like Annie Enniken, Humbird, The Nunnery. There's a guy called Cold Sweat who's a hip hop artist from North Dakota. And it's just been this neat experience of kind of adding to my network of friends and our network of friends. And then when they come here, people kind of recognize the name, even if they never came to one of our shows. They might be like, oh, I know that Humbird. Like, I think she's supposed to be really good. And hopefully they go see the show.
How has the pandemic impacted the music scene in Rochester? We know that it kind of came to a screeching halt in some capacity for many different organizations, groups.
Yeah.
How has it impacted the music scene?
You know, I think in a lot of ways, if we had known and if I had known how long this was going to last, it would have been so depressing that I'm kind of glad that it happened stage by stage. So initially, you know, everyone was live streaming and doing a lot of fundraising, and that was really cool. But, you know, we all just get burned out of being on the internet, especially when we're not interacting with humans. And so, yeah, a lot of it just came to a halt. And then honestly, a lot of my friends who are musicians are also really involved in social justice movements and Black Lives Matter. And so they weren't playing a lot of shows because they were busy. And so it has been this kind of, I don't know, like a great pause, I guess. But the cool thing is that I'm seeing a lot of friends record and they're ready to put out new music and sometimes people that typically don't take the time to write new music. So that's really exciting. You know, obviously like the big Riverside shows were completely canceled. And they did the park shows. You know, it's just like the Rochester Thaw, which was, you know, in its infancy as a brand new music festival, like that had to be canceled. And so I think we're just trying to figure out now what will be safe, what will people attend, what are people ready for, who's even practiced with their band in the last few months. So that's a big thing. And I see the small stuff coming back a lot sooner than the big stuff, but that's my favorite thing anyway. So I'm kind of pumped about it, to be honest.
Why is it so important for our community to celebrate music?
So I remember I went to this talk once, and it was they're Portuguese musicians and therapists, which therapy is my other love. And they talked about how, you know, before music and dance were performances, they were how humans processed. And, you know, regardless of whether or not you like the sound or when you dance, you feel like you look good, you're expressing yourself. And there's so many ways that we can process emotions and heal as humans that don't necessarily have to do with words. They definitely don't have to do with like typing on the internet, which I'm as guilty of as anyone. We need to experience things in our bodies and come together. And music just does that. You know, every culture has music. Every culture has ways that people come together and celebrate and mourn and, you know, celebrate changes. And that's just a thing that hasn't happened in the last year. But I don't know, I like to think about when you go to a show and you can see like everyone from like an older person kind of dancing in their seat to like a little kid getting into it. And little kids have no, they're never shy or anything. So they just like dance their little hearts out. And that just feels so good to me. And the more that we can have that in the community, the better it is.
Rosei, you're so amazing. Oh my goodness. I have goosebumps with some of your comments. I mean, I love the happy list that you just mentioned. I love the connection you make to how music connects everyone too. And having that experience is incredibly important. Can you share about the upcoming events that are going to be happening? I know that you mentioned that there might be some barriers to that, but can we talk about the event that is slated to happen at the castle? Will it be in person, virtual, and then what other events are coming up?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say too, just to go back to that gathering thing, I think for me, part of what's been so hard about this year is because I'm not an artist and I don't have that creative outlet, but I go to shows and I go to art shows, and that's how I process emotions and see what other people are experiencing. And there's just ways that that can happen. And I guess I've gotten a lot more into movies this year, which I like, because that's another way that we like take human experiences and maybe make them into fiction, but you can feel the emotions, but with some distance. So I think I just am really ready to have that feeling again of being in the audience and just going like, oh, so good, or it's so fun. So there's already some stuff starting up. So Clay Fulton, who's an awesome guy, is finishing up a residency at Thesis. And Thesis has emerged as just a great place for live music. They've really put a lot of effort into it, both indoors and outdoors. And so I know they'll be having residencies all summer and hopefully some bigger shows too, just as we see how things are going. Little Thistle oftentimes hosts music, and they have some fun things they're going to be announcing. Taco Jed, I book for them, and I have a whole summer I just made. I just publicized it all. So I think all that smaller stuff will definitely be coming back quicker because we know that smaller groups are, and especially all the outdoor stuff.
And I love their tacos, by the way.
Oh, you cannot.
I have to say that. I'm actually
I really admire your dedication to tacos.
It was really good. I haven't tried
how you're passionate and how it's an experience for you for music. That's what it is for tacos for me. I literally, if someone tells me there's an awesome taco somewhere, I have to go try it. I have to experience it. It's just so fun. I love it because.
Have you tried Taco Lab yet?
I have, yes. Their quesadilla is delicious. It's a new addition to their menu, and it's so good. But tacos to me I've never met a taco that wasn't delicious, literally. It's probably for you, with music, you've never met a musician that you probably didn't enjoy, unless, well, maybe you have.
So I have this friend who's like a YouTube influencer.
Okay.
Which I just think is so fascinating. And he's, I'm just not really in that generation. I guess I look at YouTube sometimes, but I don't know how to like do YouTube. And he used to do reaction videos, and that's how he got a lot of followers. And then he started putting out his own music, and he realized, he was like, who am I to tear apart something that someone else probably spent years making just because I don't like it? And I think that's the big thing for me with music and art and food is like, we all have different tastes, and that's totally fine. Doesn't mean it's bad. Some things maybe are objectively not bad, but what's exciting for me is watching people get better too. And we really have to support our young artists and our young musicians and our young scientists and our young athletes and everyone if we want them to get better. And I always think about it, every famous restaurant started as one restaurant, right? Every super famous person started in like a coffee shop playing shows that no one listened to. And I want to be the person that's like, oh, I hosted that band, or I went to one of their first shows. And that's just kind of fun to me. I think that's really cool. So I particularly like seeing younger people. And even if it's not my type of music, if I see that they're really passionate and excited and have a spark and they work hard and they show up on time and, are nice to the audience, like I just want to support that. So I haven't been to a metal show yet, but that's like kind of on my bucket list because I just feel like it's a different experience. I do strongly encourage everyone to wear earplugs.
Oh, at a metal show?
At all shows. I got
Oh, really?
fancy ones for my birthday that it just lowers all the decibels. Cause I'm like, I want to be able to
Right.
hear someday, you know, when I'm older. So
Awesome.
kids.
Okay, so we have to go back to the events we got on.
Oh yeah. So Riverside. So Tyler and I with the Rochester Posse will be working for, I guess Riverside now will be called Civic Music. They just want to clarify that it's the city's music department, but everything's booked. And hopefully they'll be announcing the lineups in the next month or so. I think there's a time in May when a lot of festivals are kind of deciding where things are going to be safety wise. And I believe as long as, you know, nothing gets worse, we should be able to have outdoor shows and socially distanced and just whatever safety measures. But they have plans that if for whatever reason the coronavirus situation got worse, we can still have music. But I'm super excited about that. I've been sitting on that lineup for almost 2 years now. And I'm really bad at keeping secrets. So I'm just super excited for it to be announced so I can stop being like.
Hey, I'll be monitoring your page then.
For more information about this story and other Our Town features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown, or ksmq.org/OurTown.
Hey Rochester, this is Michael Wojak with your Our Town Rundown. So many cool things going on in the spring in Rochester. One of the great things from this last week is we heard that Rochester International Airport will be getting 2 more direct flights next winter. One will be to Fort Myers, Florida. The other will be to Phoenix, Arizona. Success is building on success there as we use our airport more. There's more competition, better prices, and more destinations from our airport. I love seeing this happen for our community. Have you seen the renderings of the new Mayo building going, an 11-story building in Discovery Square downtown? Folks are going to love it or hate it based on the architecture. I am a huge fan of doing new and exciting things that you can't see anywhere but Rochester, Minnesota. We have come a long way from some of the mediocre buildings that have been built in the past. Additionally, you like the downtown dining? Well, a lot of that outdoor seating we created last year is coming back with the concrete barricades, creating additional outdoor seating. You may not know this, but parking is pretty much always available downtown. Our ramps almost never fill up, so get out there as we get some nicer days, enjoy the great downtown dining, and support your favorite restaurants down there. Now, RCTC has another show coming up. It's called Say Goodnight, and that's only showing 3 times in mid-May, so you may want to get your tickets and support local theater. This is the time of year to get out and take a look at the bluebells. They are amazing. I love the South Zumbro Trail starting out at Mayowood, but also Bear Creek and a number of other trails you can see them along. If you've never seen the bluebells before, it's kind of a special part of spring in Rochester, and I highly recommend you bike, walk, run, roll, however you want to be in the outdoors. Go out there and enjoy it. Additionally, Fresh Air Fitness is coming to Central Park. It's going to be on May and June, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:15 p.m. Get out there and try something new. Olmsted County History Center will be having Spring Fling this Saturday. It's a great event for the whole family. Tickets are $5 for adults, $2 for children. Also on May 1st, the Rochester Women's Show will be going on at Graham Park. A lot of exciting things going on. Get out there, enjoy your community. And that's just a little bit of what's going on in Rochester this week.
And you know what, Rosie, I will say this, I've been incredibly busy the last few years, finishing graduate school. And I know you share about the music events, but that I would have to say I'm really looking forward to being able to do is to attend those events moving forward. I love your passion about that. I think Amarachi has a question. Do you have go ahead, Amarachi.
Earlier, you mentioned the importance of supporting our local artists. So how else can we do so besides attending these events?
Yeah, so that's such a good question because there's so many ways that you can help people get visibility other than even if you can't make it, because, people have kids, their work, etc. So even just following them on social media and sharing the things that you're passionate about to your own, I do Facebook for a living, and it's really hard to be seen as a business page if you're not running ads. But if you shared an artist and we're friends on Facebook, I'm much more likely to see it and be like, oh, who is that? And the same thing on Instagram, like even just sharing things to stories. That's kind of how I find new artists, especially visual artists in Rochester. Obviously, buying music is really important if you're a person that listens to CDs. And I'm a huge fan of merchandise. So I will say, after John Sievers did his t-shirt project, I officially like own too many band t-shirts and now have to rotate them through like storage. And I have a lot of band sweatshirts too, but like beanies, pins, stickers. So I wouldn't underestimate the power of like buying a piece of merchandise from an artist that you love and just wearing it. And hopefully it's cool and someone's like, "Oh, what's that? Where's that from?" What are other ways? Yeah, I think honestly just telling other people about it. And when you see that they have a show coming up, you know, even if you can't go, just saying, "Wow, this person's amazing. I know that you would love them." I miss like teaching yoga classes because I made the playlist. I could subtly, I have this dream of like working in a coffee shop just so I can infiltrate the space with my music, because, you know, a lot of people don't listen to the radio anymore. And so then how do they hear new things? And our algorithms on like Spotify, I learn a lot from Spotify, but also it tends to play more famous people, not local people. So you really have to try hard to find music from the people around you. And then so here's my philosophy of like doing phone stuff when you're at shows, because it can kind of ruin the experience to be on your phone the whole time. So what I try and do is like 1 or 2 posts. Now I have like 5 accounts, so it takes a little bit, and then put my phone away and just enjoy the experience. Because, you know, you're never going to go back and like look at the terrible video that you made of the show. I'd much rather have a picture of like myself and my friends at a show than like way far away some musician. But it is really powerful when you share stuff on social media for artists that you like, especially not people that aren't famous. It's just one of the best ways that you can help them.
Rosie, you mentioned about, you know, listening to young singers or people that may be branching out and getting into this creative space. What are some words of wisdom or what you have seen really works, or some advice on how someone that may be interested in getting into the music scene and trying to find their niche in it and get connected? What are your recommendations for that?
I would say, I mean, apart from the obvious of just practice, and I'm not a musician myself, but I can definitely, you know, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And then go to other people's shows as much as you possibly can. Introduce yourself, not in like a weird way, but in a genuinely friendly way. Connect online. But this year has shown me more than anything of just the importance of connecting to people in person and getting to know them in person. And then, you know, as a booker, I'm thinking like, oh, I met that person at that show and they mentioned, you know, and then really having some kind of an online presence. It doesn't have to be a web page. It could be just a Facebook page and an Instagram account. But this is something I've been thinking about lately. Like just having like even a single sentence description of your sound and who you are, you know, because I'm making these shows and I'm like, I can't even find like just like one sentence, you know, like I'm a singer-songwriter from Rochester that plays blues music. And it doesn't have to be extensive, but just the bare minimum. But really, yeah, just going to shows, showing up as much as possible. And like Rochester's so small and the arts community and music community is so friendly. If you just show up and like say hello to people, you will have friends.
What is one thing or more? I mean, it could be more. What is the one thing that you've learned over the last year that's really stuck with you?
I'm an extrovert and I have to be around people or I go insane. When things were really bad, I called them sanity walks. I would walk downtown and like get coffee so I could interact with someone from Cafe Steam for a few minutes, look in the windows of places, and at least like get some sunlight. But I think that's, you know, and I think there's a part of me that still feels kind of embarrassed about that, or like I shouldn't need to be around other people, or I should be happy. You know, I have a wonderful boyfriend, but humans we're really meant to be together in community and supporting each other. And I'm really passionate about that because I can see my own mental health go downhill. And then I see how lonely people are. You know, when I was a therapist, that was the number one complaint is people are really lonely. And it always killed me because I was like, I have a waiting room full of lonely people. So the more I can do to help other people feel welcome in this community, the better. I'm just really looking forward to getting back to that.
Well, you've provided a lot of insight today. And is there anything else you would like to share?
If anyone has like a trust fund or a ton of money and they want to open
Yes.
and they want to open a venue and hire some really cool people to book it and do all the promotion, I honestly think that's just what, you know, to get bigger shows in Rochester, you got to have money, because musicians need to get paid. And that's another thing I'm really passionate about is like, we don't ask people to play for free. We don't try and talk them down, you know, because like an accountant doesn't do your taxes for fun. You know, a doctor doesn't go to work just for fun. Like musicians they're working and we need to pay them. So yeah, if anyone has just like a giant sum of money they're sitting on, there's a lot of great buildings downtown.
Rosei, I want to talk about that a little bit more because I think it's really good that you pointed this out. I know you've posted about this.
Yeah.
But that point that you make that, the doctor doesn't go to work and think they're not going to get paid for seeing a patient, you know, you make some valid points. Why do you think people think artists and musicians should give their services for free? And I agree with you. It's boggling that people think that way.
So I read this really great study that I think my alma mater, University of Oregon, did, because I've really tried to understand that, because, you know, some people are legitimately kind of trying to take advantage, but most people, I think they just have not thought it through. And there's this perception that if you enjoy your job, you should not get paid as much. And I think that's a very American, very Puritan work ethic. You know, you should suffer while you're working and all the fun stuff you do should be outside of that. And, you know, but then when we get to like really famous people, everyone agrees that they should get paid. And it's like, well, how do you become like that person and that person? Like someone who's really talented, I want them working on their music all the time, not working in a coffee shop 40 hours a week and then trying to get better at music. So I just keep trying to spread that message. And to be honest, like before I knew a lot of musicians, it was just not something I thought about. You know, I would totally be like, it always feels fun to get something for free, or like, I'm like, oh, can I have a free ticket? You know, I want to be on the list. It feels so special. But really, if you really love an artist, the best thing you can do is buy a ticket, and buy merchandise and not try and get stuff for free, because you're supporting them being able to do what they love to do instead of a different job. And I'm really, you know, I mean, I changed careers. I'm really about human beings like doing the things that they're meant to do and being supported in that and being able to make a living. And so I just always want to be working towards that and supporting that, and not ever, you know, paying someone so little that they have to have the other job too. It just doesn't make any sense.
You're right, it doesn't. And I think that's an important message, especially as we end our little discussion today. It's an inspiring one. I am going to be doing that 10 happy list. I think that's everybody that is listening and watching this should do that.
Yeah, I redo it about once a year or so. And it's like, you just take a moment and you don't have to think about it too hard. And it's funny because the first time I did it, I thought it would be like, oh, you know, the super big things, right? But usually it's actually kind of little moments. And then the most important thing is after you make the list and you look at it, you think about how you can add those things into your life, like right now, today. And it doesn't have to be a career change. It could be as simple as going on a walk outside or calling a friend. Then you get the benefit of experiencing that positive affect. And it's not like, oh, I really love traveling and I'll go to Mexico next year.
Right.
Which is also true.
Something totally extreme too. Like I'm going to completely,
yeah, it's kind of depressing to think about it that far in the future.
Yeah, I hear. But maybe one day we can travel again though.
Gosh, I hope so.
Yeah. Amarachi, you and I got to do the happy list, okay?
Yes, I'm definitely going to do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, Rosie, thank you so much for being on the show. I am
thank
so
you so
grateful.
much for inviting me.
Grateful you took the time. Your message, I think, is incredibly important. I know it's incredibly important. I know that I look at the creative scene in Rochester very differently because of your voice, and it's needed to be heard. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That makes me feel so good.
Yes. Thank you.
I can't wait to see you guys in person sometime.
I know. I will try not to hug tackle everyone because I'm an extrovert too.
I'm just, for people who are vaccinated, I'm going in for the hugs.
Yeah.
I just can't handle it anymore. I'm
vaccinated, so we can hug.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Perfect. Well,
thanks so much.
Thanks again. And thanks for tuning into Our Town, the podcast, a show with KSMQ Public Television. This is Danielle Teal and my co-host, Amarachi Irakwe. She's so incredible. A shout out to Annie Krennick. She's our producer. She puts all the good stuff out there on social media for you to see. We're so grateful to her. If you want to catch up with us, you can check out Facebook or Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown.